All right, so I'm gonna keep running with this. So this is I hope no I want to say that I offer this video with respect, but sometimes some of understanding is actually looking back at our experience, because there are deeper lessons and also rifts and ripples within our experience than we could appreciate on the surface. So if you watch my last video, I was talking about some of the significance of where Philando Castile was pulled over and victimized in the area where he was victimized. Is that it is not a coincidence that of all the places that Philando Castile could have been pulled over, that he was pulled over exactly there on Larpenteur, because Larpenteur is that's a heavily patrolled that if you could take all of the streets in the United States that are the heaviest patrolled, the heaviest representation of police presence, where police traffic there almost like a red light district for police officers, would be Larpenteur. I can only imagine how many men of color have been pulled over on Larpenteur. My best friend, a person from my same country, my best friend's older brother was pulled over with me on Larpenteur before Philando Castile. I was pulled over about half a mile north of there, not on Larpenteur, but Larpenteur crosses a street called Snelling in St. Paul, and so Philando Castile was slain on Larpenteur about two blocks east of Snelling on Larpenteur. I worked at a Jimmy John's on that block of Snelling and Larpenteur about 3 years prior to 3 years prior to Philando Castile being slain. I worked there. I did, that was my stomping ground for a long time as a delivery driver, up and down, up and down, up and down, up and down Larpenteur as the main artery of my profession and role at Jimmy John's. In that area, that's called Falcon Heights in St. Paul. All my deliveries to Falcon Heights, that was lucrative as one of my first real jobs making money, was nothing but Larpenteur. Sometimes up Snelling, sometimes down Snelling, but always up and down Larpenteur was the main artery. And then I was pulled over one time about a half a mile north on Snelling, but near about wherever Larpenteur and Snelling is, near about where Philando Castile was assassinated. I was pulled over half a mile north of there. It's not a coincidence that I would be pulled over there, according to my friends from Africa, because they say that you have at least 3 or 4 the overlapping of police districts. So you have Falcon Heights, St. Paul, Roseville, Lauderdale, Minneapolis, all within about no more than 2 square miles at Larpenteur, where Philando Castile was pulled over. So I don't know what precinct that actual officer that slayed Philando Castile was from, but it's not a coincidence that's just a convergence of police presence, police patrol, police quota for pulling people over that would be present right there. Because a lot of the things that are really dangerous and deadly, they don't do anything more sophisticated than what works. So we need to pull in numbers. We need a quota for people to pull over. We need minorities to pull over. What's wrong with Larpenteur? Let's use Larpenteur. So Larpenteur is the perfect place to get pulled over. But I wasn't always savvy or cognizant of that, especially before Philando Castile was lost. So the night that Philando Castile was slain, I remember that night. I actually went to a used bookstore that night. That at that time, when Philando Castile was assassinated, I was going through a weird phase in my life where I would sometimes joyride at that time. I had been driving a vehicle for about 8 years at that point, my family vehicle, my mother's vehicle, and I wasn't sure what I wanted to do with my life. At that time, I had before, so I worked at that Jimmy John's for about 3 years prior to Philando Castile being lost. Then I then I ended up that I got into some financial turbulence, and I had some I fell out with that Jimmy John's like that, and then I stopped. I wasn't taking care of the oil in my mother's car, although she let me use it primarily, and that car failed on me in a desert. I was traveling to the Southwest on an inspiration to visit a friend, and I hadn't been taking care of the oil because I wasn't sure what I wanted to do in life, and that car broke down on me in the middle of the desert. But I had saved the last ounce of my cell phone battery. I had been listening to music on my cell phone, my iPhone, like a older iteration of the iPhone, and uh and then but I had enough where forethought to save the battery, and then the car failed on me in the middle of the desert. It started to fail, and I got it about a half a mile to an exit to get fixed, to get looked at. Someone looked at it, and they're like, "Oh man, this thing is dead, man. You might be able to make it to that city where you grew up at, but you're not gonna get too far, man. This thing is dead." Then I got back on the highway, and it completely failed. And that was like a very small place. I was getting ready to close that little place I pulled over at. I had enough battery to make a police to make a call to 911. And then there was like a mechanic that specialized in poaching vehicles about to break down. They actually had a business for taking advantage of people that would break down on the side of the road. But they were at least fair enough to, they came, they picked up the car, they brought me to some weird ass home with like mounted like buck heads on the wall, like this weird ass family, and they were like standing behind me, between me and the door when I wasn't looking, and they're like, "Yeah, man, so we can help you out, man, but we may need to keep your car. Is that all right?" Yeah, okay, but can you give me like somewhere where I can get a Greyhound? Yeah, yeah, we got you, man. So there's they know what happens on this road. So there's a gas station about like maybe 40 minutes away, and they take me there. And I had kind of like a weird conversation with them, and they at least let me use my phone to call my family to let them know where I was. And they're like, you yeah, I saw how you were holding that. Like, I was using the phone, and then I set it down like this, and then I got it back to like, yeah, I saw how you were holding that phone, man. Um, but since we're gonna keep your car, here go $40 for your car, and then I used that to, and then I was waiting there for like 5 hours at a gas station for the next Greyhound, and I was trying to look like I wasn't loitering. They let me sit there, but it was uncomfortable because everyone that walked through there was like, "What the hell is that dude doing there for 5 hours?" But the time went quick, even though it was a long time. And then a bus came that was going where I was going, and they're like, "Oh no, man, we ain't got enough room." And then another bus was coming the opposite direction where I came from, like going to the next state up north, back where I'm from. And then I had, they're like, you got cash? I was like, yeah. They're like, "How much you got?" I was like, $40. They're like, "There ain't a place to sit down, but you can come with us." So I got out of that situation, and it wasn't. Then I actually got to the next state up, like 6 hours away, and I didn't have any money, so I was like at a shelter for a few days, and my family finally relented to get me a bus ticket to come home, but I had fucked myself over with that. But then I got a car after that. We got another family car I was using, and I didn't work with at that Jimmy John's again, but I worked at a Domino's for a few years, and then but when I was working at the Domino's, one time my glasses got broken, and I put some tape on it like half ass like that, and then I was also reading like a lot of books by Arthur Avalon, and I was reading the fine footnotes, and it made it difficult where my eye I would experience pain from that lens like that, and that fine like that. So for a while, I actually couldn't. It wasn't. It may not have been possible for me to go on with my education because it was becoming painful from that glasses like that. And then also, I didn't know if I could do my driving anymore because it would be painful also with the lights at night. So around that time that Philando Castile was slain like that, I wasn't sure what I was going to do with my life, and I had been in the habit of driving the city in a circle just to get out and think, and also to test my vision. Like, can I handle driving at night? I was doing stuff like that at that time, driving for the sake of driving as a minority. I was doing stuff like that the very night that Philando Castile was slain. That was my life, and I was actually thinking of driving by my old job just for old time's sake. What about just going by my old job just for the sake of it? Because I did have memories there. I also had another training there there's a job corps less than 3/4 of a mile away from where Philando Castile was slain, and I was actually a security. I was the head of the security, captain of the security there, the security cadets, the secretary of the student government, and student of the month before there, and a tutor for math at Job Corps 3/4 of a mile there. So I had history on that stomping ground, and I was thinking of driving down that road that night just to clear my head. The same night Philando Castile was slain. The reason I didn't go is because I went to a used bookstore to sell back some of my books a book by Osho, the book on women by Osho. I don't think life anticipated me to do that.